episode of the PodShop with Connversa. We are celebrating episode number 3, and we have some very exciting guests on the show. But before we get diving into that, my name is Kaitlyn. I'm a producer here with Connversa, and I'm with my co-host today, Jeremy, who is the founder of Connversa. Jeremy, how has your day been?
So far, so good. Really looking forward to this recording and to our upcoming special debate that we're about to have.
I know. I'm looking forward to it as well. We already had a meeting earlier today, but I had a cup of coffee, so now I feel very energetic between last meeting and this one. So now, I think we should take a moment to introduce our third person. You may recognize him from our first episode. It is our worker, Kelcey. Kelcey, welcome back to the show. So happy to have you back.
Hey, glad to be back. I don't know how I feel about worker, though.
I panicked.
I feel like that makes me like a worker bee, and I don't know how I feel about that totally.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to take ownership of that. I panicked mid-thought, and I was like, I don't have a word to describe him. So in that case, how about I hand over the floor to you and have you introduce yourself again, Kelcey?
Yeah, so for the longest time, I was a producer here at Connversa. We're now changing the organization, the way we're all kind of positioned, and I guess I'll be moving into Director of Pre-Production is the new term of it, and I guess that's what we're rolling with. We kind of have batted a couple names around, but basically that means I'll be in charge of kind of getting shows off the ground, getting shows from, the idea stage into the actual production stage, and making sure we give them a voice and give them the voice they want. And that's the biggest goal, is not just to be a podcast out there in the open, but to actually have a voice to your podcast and make it something work. And I work with Josh, our now post-production producer or director, a lot, and Jeremy as well. And then, it's been an exciting run so far with Connversa. Been here since the turn of the year, basically, since the clock rolled over on midnight, and loved it ever since. But I've been podcasting in the podcasting realm for almost 4 years now. So it's been a wild ride. Got to see some weird things, got to see some fun things.
So you did shift, like you kind of, we like you mentioned, we had a role shift kind of in Connversa. Yeah. So is there anything, do you have one thing that you miss and one thing you don't miss about like having that producer role?
I honestly don't know if there's anything I miss about it. It was really fun, but not like, I think the thing that I'll miss is the changing in roles with the changing in roles is the changing in what each role does now. Like if I could do the producer role that they have now for the whole last 6 months, I think that would be a whole lot more fun in a weird way. Like I think I honestly might get bored, though, to be honest. It would be, I don't know how I'd feel, but it's really cool, just the way that we have things going forward, just how it's all laid out for each of us to be, we can do what we're all best at going forward. And that's, I think, what the best thing is.
So then moving on, I think it is about time we can introduce what we're going to be discussing today.
Well, actually, before you do that, Kaitlyn,
yeah.
I just want just one quick comment. I actually like referring to employees as workers now. I'm glad you did that. I think part of the new policy is going to be everyone's just going to be worker and then a number, worker 1, worker 2. We're not even going to use names. I want to dehumanize everyone as much as possible, so you just feel like a cog in the machine, and I'm just like the puppet master pulling the strings. That's kind of how I envision things going forward.
Oh, no, what have I done?
Because that makes you, in my eyes, the way I hear worker, I think worker bee. So that makes you the queen bee, Jeremy. Are you comfortable being the queen bee?
I am, because every morning I play there's a New York Times game. It's like a word puzzle. It's called what is it called? It's called. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Beehive or something like that. Not Wordle. Yeah. It's the other one, like where you have 7 letters and you have to make as many words as you can from it. And if you get all of them, you are called the queen bee. And so I always strive to get all of them. And so I'm very happy to be the queen bee. Everyone serve the queen bee at my pleasure.
In post, can we get like a crown on Jeremy just for like about 3 seconds? Yeah, that looks awesome.
I need the Fall Guy crown.
Antenna.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. That looks amazing. Thank you, post. Or wait, worker 3.
Mm-hmm. Was it worker 3 or 7 at this point in time? Which one are we going for post?
Liv's going to be editing this episode, so let's go with 7. Thank you, worker 7.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Jeremy, do I have permission now to go on to our segment and introduce what we're going to be doing today?
You may proceed, number 4.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Highness. So today we're actually going to have the great debate. We're going to have 5 rounds of debate with Connversa on podcasting. So I am going to be presenting the first couple of questions, and we're going to be pitting our royal queen bee against worker number 2, Kelcey versus Jeremy. And I'm going to present you guys with a couple questions, and I'm going to give you 2 options, and you get to choose which one you would like to debate for. And when we move forward, you're going to have 2 minutes to battle it out, present your best points that you have, and then the other person will be able to rebuttal and give their points. And at the end, we're going to have 1 minute of debate where you two can both confront each other and poke holes in each other's stories. So, any questions before we get started?
No, I'm good.
We're good to go.
Wait, do I become queen bee if I beat Jeremy? Actually, that is my only question.
Ooh. Whoever wins this gets to take over the control of the company. That would be interesing. High
Get
stakes.
a bonus for a day?
We'll think about it.
Just have one day where you just double up pay just because you beat Jeremy.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, with those high stakes in order, let's get ready to rumble. All right. So with our first question I will present to you both is the discussion of podcast length, 10 minutes versus 45 minutes. Which is better, or which is the benefits or cons of them? So which one of you would like to take the 10-minute, and which one of you would like to take the 45-minute vote?
Okay, Kelcey, I will graciously allow you to choose.
You know what? I'm going to take the hard one. I'm going to make myself have to work for it a little bit. I'm going to take the 45-minute.
Very well. All right. I will go ahead and set the timer. Doop, doop, doo. Oh, I should have had this set up. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Kelcey, when you are ready, begin.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to start out with asking everybody, please check the current timer on your video. We're well past 5 minutes, correct? That means we have not had any real content built in, but we've had a very fun, entertaining conversation up to this point. But have you guys really learned anything other than Jeremy likes to be queen bee? No, we haven't really learned anything yet. But this is what 45 minutes will give you. Now you get 35 extra minutes of great content where you get to learn something. And you can get 10-minute conversations all the time. That happens all the time, but it's you feel needed. You feel more. You feel like you want something else. It makes you want to dive more into the topic. It's just not satisfying. 45 minutes gives you the most satisfaction you can get for a podcast without going too far. You can actually become somewhat of a learned person for a subject in 45 minutes. In 10 minutes, you're going to get a slap on the wrist and just be like, all right, well, I learned my fun fact for that random trivia day sometime down the road. 45 minutes, you might actually be able to substantiate that term. So give me the 45 minutes when I'm actually going to build a podcast. Now, I'm not going to say there's not some credibility to 10 minutes. I'll give Jeremy that much of a lead to try to make his case. But to be completely fair, 45 minutes gives you the best content, the most amount of time, and you can actually build a relationship with your listener at 45 minutes. And I think if you ever want to have a substantial building in your process for podcasting, you do need to build that relationship. You do need to have some sort of basis for being an expert to build a relationship with your client, with your listener, with your guests. And 45 minutes allows you to do that. 10 minutes, it's a very abbreviated conversation. Now, as a producer, love 10 minutes. 45 minutes though, as a producer, as a host, as a guest, as a listener, that is the absolute key for me.
7 seconds to spare, but very well worded. Well done, Kelcey. All right. Or worker number 2. What's your number?
I think I'm technically 3. I think Josue is 1 and Josh is 2.
Yeah,
all
you're
right.
number 3.
Now, before we get into the debate, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy. Jeremy, if you would like to make your case for 10 minutes, start when you're ready.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with a sarcastic slow clap. Nicely done, number 3. Nicely done. You did the best you could, and we all appreciate that. Hey, you can go on and blabber on for 45 minutes if you want to. The problem there is that you say, oh, we have all the time in the world. Let's just have a meandering conversation, and it can take you forever to get to the point. I mean, one thing that I hate, I know a lot of people hate when they're listening to podcasts, is a host and guest that just take forever to get to the point. And then by the time they finally got there, you might have moved on. You're like, screw this. I'm going to go listen to something else. Now, as Queen Bee, I'm going to change the topic a little bit because obviously the only two options are not only 10 minutes or 45 minutes. There's a lot of space in between. So I'm going to say, 10 to more like 15 to 20 minutes, because in fact, we get this question a lot from our clients. How long should our podcast episodes be? And we always kind of start with like, maybe somewhere around 15, 20 minutes. Why? Because that's long enough. It's plenty long enough if you've done your prep work to have a substantive conversation, but it's not so long that on the one hand, a listener might look at that length and get a bit of like sticker shock, like, whoa, 45 minutes. I don't need that much on this particular topic. I just want to, I'm in and out, especially for the kind of podcast we produce. People are looking for, to learn something. And when you give yourself those kind of artificial limits, like, okay, 15 minutes, we're sticking to it. 20 minutes, we're sticking to it. It kind of forces you to be more concise, cut out the fluff, and just get right to the heart of the conversation, because I think that's what audiences are really, really looking for. You cut out the fat and you cut out the fluff.
Your Highness, unfortunately, I must cut you off. Your time is up.
Okay, I'll play by the rules. Okay.
All right, but I will say both of you have very good points and honestly a great explanation for why certain podcasts are 10 minutes and why some of them are 45 minutes. Now, before I give too much input myself, I am going to open up the floor to you both for 1 minute where you both are able to address each other's points and go from there. So start when you are ready.
I'd like to go ahead and start and just say, thank you for proving my point, Jeremy. You were given 2 minutes on the clock and you ran out of time. The guy who's arguing for a 10-minute show ran out of time on the 2-minute clock. The guy who's arguing for 45 minutes left 7 seconds on the clock. It's amazing how, you could actually really, really not get a whole lot in 2 minutes. So I just want to thank you. I mean, you really just made my point for me. I mean, you can go ahead and put a little green check mark above my name. And yeah, I think I've just improved myself from worker 3 to go ahead and call myself Queen Bee for the day. Because you really I don't really need to argue a point. I don't need to argue a point. You made it for me.
Okay. Well, look, well played, sir.
And you had to change the rules. And you had to change the rules to 15 minutes. Let's add that one too.
Well, I didn't have to. I wanted to, and I can do whatever I want. So, first of all, fair enough. Good point. And I'll upgrade you to worker 3.5. How's that? I'll give you half a point there.
I think that's a downgrade.
Bribing.
I think that's a downgrade to 3.5.
Listen, here's the thing. In a way, you're kind of proving my point. Yeah, 2 minutes is not enough to actually have a real conversation. But 10 minutes? Give me 5 times as much time? No problem, right? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Now, to be totally fair, okay, I think what we're really talking about here is there's no one answer to this, right? And that's why it's kind of an interesting question. Out there in podcast land, there are podcast episodes of all different lengths, everywhere from, I listen to some podcasts that are 2.5 hours long, and I'll listen to the whole damn thing if it's good. And there are some podcasts that are like a daily 5-minute podcast. And I'll admit, those are not my favorite. I think it's pretty hard once you get below 10 minutes or around 5 minutes. It's hard to really give enough substance, but you can, if you're well prepared, 10 tight minutes, you can get a lot of good stuff in there. It really depends on your audience, right? So I'm not so much rebutting number 3's point here. I'm more just, kind of allowing that we're having fun doing this debate, but ultimately, really, it just really depends, right? And I think that what we found in working with our clients is that you have to start somewhere. And I think it is important when you're starting out to say, okay, we're going to shoot for about 20, 25 minutes, because it's good to have some limitations as opposed to just, well, let's just record and see what happens. That to me is too loose. But as you go on and you do more episodes, you tend to get a feel for, well, how long should these episodes be? How long do they naturally seem to be taking? And really the ultimate arbiter in my mind is you make them as long as they need to be to deliver the most value to your listeners. And when you're editing, you cut out anything that's extraneous. Cut out the fluff, cut out the fat, cut out the fluff, cut out the fat, and what you're left with, which is pretty much how long the episode should be ultimately, whether that's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever.
I do want to piggyback off that for a second and say, despite the debate, I do actually agree wholeheartedly that it's based off your topic. There's like, you look at some of the biggest podcasts in the world. I'm going to name drop here with one guy in Joe Rogan's show, and 3 hours daily. That's his podcast. Like, could you imagine sitting there and actually digesting the 3 hour podcast for that entire time? There's got to be some dull points, right? So 3 hours is not the greatest time frame. But you know what he does is he takes it into, turns it into digestible content by turning it into 10, 15-minute segments, 20-minute segments. You look at our client base right now, what we've done is we found that perfect sweet spot of like that 20 to 27-minute range. You know, like in the gap in which we're debating right now, there's that perfect sweet spot, which is the 20 to 30-minute range. And that's really what we found is successful. And that's kind of, you know, it's tough to choose one or the other, like choose the high side, choose the low side. But I think when you actually get down to it, it's dependent on your content is number one. And then kind of number two is how your show is all set up. If it's a debate show, it requires a little bit of different timing. If it's a, you know, one person storytelling show, it takes a little bit longer as well. If it's a two-person guest back and forth, that's that 20, 25-minute range that is just spot on. Now, there are some shows that they go beyond that, and it's because it's a very entertaining conversation between the people. So it just depends. It really, this is a question that's more like, what are you trying to talk about? What are you trying to get across is really what determines the minute. So, I mean, despite the debate, we needed to be clear about that because that is something that I think is huge.
I certainly agree. Those were very good takeaways, especially, you know, we have our wonderful showmanship, you know, and we have this battle going on. But both of you have a very good point and very good takeaways where there is a gray area and it does depend on the client and what you're looking for.
And I just want to add just one more thing in that I think, you know, there's an assumption out there that people's attention spans are just super short, you know, no more than 20 seconds. And that so all content has to be super quick hits and bites. And I think there is some truth to that, but it really depends on the platform. And I think the fact that, you know, you mentioned the Joe Rogan show, that thing is 3 hours long. It's also the number one podcast in the world. I mean, there is a massive audience for long form content when it's done well. So I think that it, at the very least, calls into question that the claim that every content has to be the kind of short, you know, 20-second thing. It's simply not true. And I think especially for podcasts tend to lend themselves more to longer form content. And so, you know, you shouldn't be afraid of going a bit longer if you really have something to say and it's really interesting.
Well said. And so keeping conscientious of time, I'm going to move us along to the very next question. I hope you both are warmed up and ready. So now the next debate that we are going to have is when to post, the time of day, and what day in the week. And now first to start us, we have beginning of the week versus end of the week. Who would like to take which side?
Well, I guess I'll go first this time since you went first last time, Kelcey. I'll just arbitrarily pick beginning of the week.
All right. And is there a time of day in the week that, or like a time of the day that you're going to choose?
Yes. So I'll do beginning of the week, like early morning.
All right. So without further ado, I will go ahead and start, or when you're ready, go ahead and start, and I'll click the timer.
Okay, here we go. So I actually did a little bit of homework for this topic because I knew it was coming. And according to what I found on the internet, which of course has to be 100% true because it's never, ever wrong what you randomly find there, it seems that one of the best days to post, for example, is like on a Tuesday at, say, 5 a.m. Why? Why not Monday? Because Monday, everybody knows Monday, everyone's sort of hauling their ass back to work, whether they're literally going to the office or not. You know, you're kind of clearing your head and you have a whole bunch of emails and stuff. You're not really focused yet. And so if you publish your podcast on Monday, people might just not get to it or kind of miss it. But by Tuesday, you know, you're kind of back into the swing of things, back into your regular podcast listening habits. So that's why I would stump for Tuesday. And at least based on my own podcast listening habits, I kind of, you know, like a lot of people, I subscribe to a whole bunch of them. And I kind of have different days of the week that I tend to listen to some of them, kind of depending when they come out. So I figure you just publish it as early as possible in the day, say like 5 a.m. And so it's just there whenever you want to listen to it. And it just kind of makes it as convenient as possible for your audience, whatever time of day it is, in fact, that they might tune in, because ultimately it's really impossible to know. You know, you really don't know exactly like this percentage of my listeners listen at 3 p.m. or whatever, or these, you know, this many listen first thing in the morning. So just get it out there on a Tuesday when most people have, you know, got their shit together a little bit more and are ready to listen. And I think I'll just leave it there. I don't really have that much more to say on that. And I'll graciously cede the rest of my time to Kelcey.
Very well. With 8 seconds to spare, Kelcey, your points.
All right. So that obviously leaves me with the end of the week in the afternoons. And that's perfect because you're talking to somebody who hosts a podcast Wednesday afternoon at 8 p.m. So, live show, 8 p.m. I just want to actually ask you guys a question real fast before I start really in depth. Your favorite TV show, your favorite moment of the day that you can remember, what time does that show usually come on? It's going to be the afternoon. It's going to be 5 to 8 p.m. That prime time listening hours. And the reason I ask you the show is because a lot of our podcasts are video podcasting. Therefore, you do have to actually visually be aware. You cannot really just necessarily listen in the background. Now, we do have our audio-based podcast, and this is even better because if you release it Thursday, 5 p.m., what's the first thing you're going to listen to Friday morning when you have those no meetings, you're just trying to get to the weekend, you're going to listen to your favorite podcast. But that podcast released Thursday, 5 p.m. Why are you listening to it Friday morning? That's the best time for a B2B podcast, a business-based podcast, to entertain its guests. And look, I mean, business ideas come all over the place, but no better time than Friday when they're just relaxed. They're ready for the weekend. They don't really care. They're just thinking about on their week. They're like, you know what? What could I have done better this week? Well, my favorite podcast, the B2B podcast, you know what? They just told me all this new information Friday morning. And you know what? Let me implement that Monday. Let me write down and make sure I implement that Monday morning. And you just built an entire plan for this one listener for his next week on a Friday. How do you feel? Like, you feel pretty good about yourself, right? That's why you should listen to your favorite podcast. You should release your favorite podcast late in the week, in the afternoon. It gives them Friday, it gives them Saturday, it gives them Sunday to rethink the message you got across. So give me that. I will happily take the end of the week. And I don't really need to say much more on this one because it really is, for a business podcast, it's the best time because it's the only time a business decision maker has the free time to make those type of decisions, to take and glean something during a podcast.
Very well said. And wrapping up that thought, I also wanted to say, you know, having something in the afternoon or the evening, now that I'm thinking about it, it could be a great time for if you're still commuting to be able to listen to it on your way. You're done from work and you're on your way home. So time to commute. But good point. But I will open up the floor to you both to address each other's points whenever you're ready.
Well, I'll go. So I'll start with, first of all, the 1990s called and they want their TV scheduling back. Because I honestly like your analogy. You started with, you know, when do you tune into your favorite TV show? I'm like, what? What does that even mean? I don't tune into a TV show. I haven't watched like a, you know, TV that happens to come on at a certain time in ages. But I used to. I'm older than you guys. I remember when everyone did that. But I got to say, honestly, that was pretty good, Kelcey. I think you made a really good case for that. You kind of convinced me. I'm like, I didn't take that position because I'm like, I'm really not sure what I would say. But I think you make a pretty darn good point, to be perfectly honest. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. So I'm not going to try to poke holes in what you said because I think it's actually a pretty good point.
I do have to address your commentary on TV. Let me go ahead and it doesn't necessarily have to be cable TV. But Netflix, you turn on Netflix. What time of the day do you turn on Netflix? What time of the day do you turn on Crunchyroll, Hulu, all these, Amazon Prime Video? Like, what time do you turn on all these? They're all afternoon.
Well, you forget who you're talking to. I mean, as the Queen Bee, little do you guys know, while you're working away and doing all this stuff, I just mainly spend my day watching Netflix series. That's pretty much how I spend my time.
not all of us are the decision makers that have the freedom of the middle of the day. So.
Well, I don't know much about how the little people live and exist. I'm just very much in a bubble over here. So I just assume that everyone, does what I do.
So does this officially make me queen bee for the day? Can I watch Netflix in a day? Like, hold on now. But no, I think just kind of to your point about the transitioning and like listening in the car and stuff, that's actually a big part of what podcasting is moving towards is replacing the radio in a lot of ways, because we all have our phones, we all have connectivity now. I mean, I just got a new car and now I have Bluetooth in the car. It's the greatest thing I've ever had, because now I can listen to stuff I want to listen to, not just what's on the radio. And so that's what podcasting is turning into, is kind of you're listening to it on your drive. And as much as I'd like to say I listen to things in the morning drive, I don't. I'm just trying to get from point A to point B, like get my coffee and then call it swell. Like in the afternoon, I'm like trying to relax, get through traffic, get home, just hang out. And that's when, your favorite podcast comes into play. And so that's why I like the afternoons personally. Like it is a personal decision. Again, this is like kind of taken away from the debate for a moment. This does depend based off of really what your content is. Like if I had a sports, like for me personally on my side gig, I have a sports podcast. Certain sports release at certain times. So for like a baseball podcast, some of the best times are Tuesdays, because that's a travel day for baseball, or Mondays because that's a travel day. But for football, Thursdays, Fridays, or Monday to get either preview or post view of the content. So, but business wise, I mean, kind of weekends have been developed to what they are, but it all depends really. This is, again, it depends on what your actual content base is for your best answer. But I think for the most part, for what we are, for B2B, I do feel like the weekends are some of the best.
Yeah. And, I think that it's also knowing your audience really helps, as much as you can. And I think it kind of goes both ways. Like on the one hand, you want to gauge like, well, when is our audience most likely to listen to podcasts, right? And I know I've had, discussions with prospects sometimes where they're like, yeah, we want to do a podcast and the audience are mostly going to be people who are on the road most of the time. Like maybe they're truck drivers or salespeople who are, and so, and it kind of depends like where their territory is or exactly what they're selling or whatever. And so that can really matter in terms of when you release it, what day you release it. And I think you can also try to deliberately design the podcast as kind of like, hey, this is a good thing to listen to in the morning before work. It's going to get you in the right mindset. It's going to give you like some motivational stuff, whatever the content is, you can deliberately design it that way and then educate your listeners. Like there are some podcasts that I listen to in the morning as I'm walking my dog around the park because they're like, here's what's going on today, or like a news roundup, and it kind of, they're designed that way. And then there are some that I listen to when I take my dog around the park in the afternoon. And it's not like those are designed for that time of the day, but I've just sort of gotten into the habit. You know what I mean? But it would feel weird to me to listen to them first thing in the morning. So it sort of depends, but I think that it really depends on your audience. And, maybe the takeaway is sometimes you can kind of deliberately craft the kind of content that would make sense for different parts of the day, but it really depends.
Now, to keep in mind, this is after Jeremy listens to the Joe Rogan and Netflix show, and his Netflix shows during the middle of the day, he listens to these time design podcasts.
Yes, that's right. Well, I have to, I can't just watch Netflix. I have to change it up a little bit, consume different kinds of media during the day.
All right. Well, we are all warmed up debate-wise. Jeremy, did you want to switch out? Do you need a breather?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to jump into the arena?
All right, let's give it a go.
Okay. All right, Kaitlyn. So you go ahead, jump into the arena, get limbered up there, get ready, and I'm going to put on my debate hosting hat. Welcome. Who's a typical debate moderator these days? Like Tom Brokaw. No, he's. That's like I'm dating myself. Dan Rather. Tom Brokaw.
It's not, honestly, it's not anybody famous anymore. I think they're just kind of like they throw random people out there.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I'll just be me.
You can be Tom Brokaw. Just like, we'll just comb up to your sash.
I won't do that. All right, here we go. So our next topic is how to best edit a podcast. And the two options are doing it in-house, learning how to do it in-house, or farming it out to a freelancer or an agency, maybe even Connversa podcasting. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. So, Kaitlyn, since you're new into the arena, we'll let you choose and go first.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and choose team freelancers and production company. That's what I'm going to choose.
Okay, cool.
Do you have a timer, or should I use mine that I've got pulled up?
Oh, I'm getting the timer out. Hold on a second.
All right.
All right, here we go. And we're going for 2 minutes, we said?
Yes, 2 minutes.
You can tell I'm very prepared for this. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. Okay.
Begin.
So, producing in-house versus freelancers. I'm going to tell you why freelancers is, in a production company specifically, is going to be your best route. So when you try to do it in-house, maybe you don't exactly know, all the ins and outs and the inner machinations of what goes into a podcast. You think, oh, I just need my microphone and something to record and I'm done. Well, there's so much that goes into podcasting, and there's so much of the designs and advertising and marketing that you just might not know too much about. And it's not your fault that you don't know what you don't know, because you're very busy either running your own business, trying to create content. So why not just outsource it to people who know what they're doing? And this way you can just go ahead and, you're able to put it in one place and other people can do it for you. They give you a completely finished product, something that they are very good at and know how to do. And you don't have to stress. You don't need to worry. And I believe those were my main points for why a production company is the best way to go.
Okay, very good. And you even have about 40 seconds left if you have any final thoughts.
Ooh. Any final thoughts? Let's see. Other than the workflow ease, having a production company also do your work for you opens up your availability to have more time to focus on your business, whether that be the growth aspect or all of the other details that only you yourself can do. But why not hand off and just delegate a little bit more? That way it's easier and off your plate and you're less stressed.
Okay, well done. I am resetting the timer. And now contestant number 2, are you ready?
No.
Okay,
I'd follow an actual debater here now. I'm not prepared for this one.
All right, you got the harder one, I think. Okay, yep. On your mark, get set, go.
All right, so editing in-house, the perks of it. You get to feel a sense of accomplishment. You get to do it on your own time. You don't have to stress about hitting a deadline because your deadline is decided by you. You save money for doing it in-house. You don't have to ship it out. You don't have to worry about some other person ruining the voice of your show. You're the only one responsible for your show. That means the success and the failures fall on your shoulders. I'll be honest. I was a long-time proponent of in-house editing. And I got to be, I would love to just sit here and tell you why all in-house editing is fantastic, but I'll be fair and say I've experienced the other side of things now. And I honestly cannot, in good conscience, say that if you're trying to run a business, in-house editing is for you, because it's not. I mean, in-house editing is the most stressful thing you could ever have done. It is also the most satisfying thing when it's done right, but you don't know how to do it right at first. I've done my podcast. I've done in-house editing for 3.5 years. From where I was to start to where I am now is night and day. Do I still know everything? No. Is it still satisfying when I get an episode out and it turns out great? Absolutely. But now I can tell you when I do my podcast for clients, we are that freelance. We are that company. And I mean, I'm going to concede this one to Kaitlyn because really, honestly, I have learned the benefits of having a podcast company or a freelancer do it. We all were freelancers at one point in time. I used to freelance edit for other clients. And then now we've found Connversa. We all produce for our clients now. And it's night and day, the difference. You can get such better quality, such freedom of mind, and just be able to, as you said, focus on your growth, focus on your business itself. If you hire a company, if you hire a freelancer. And I'm not too doing that because we are obviously Connversa, but honestly, just from the freedom of mind and the less stress, night and day, I'll concede this one for sure, because this is the hardest one for me to try to argue, because I was a longtime proponent for in-house, but this is now, no, it's give me the agency all day long. So like I said, I'm conceding this one, but
okay. Well done. And that was just about exactly 2 minutes. I don't think we need rebuttal time since you already conceded. So instead, I'll just add my 2 cents real quick. I think you both made good points. I think the best case for trying to produce a podcast, say totally in-house, if you're within your own company, is if you happen to have someone on your team who has experience doing it, someone who knows the editing software and has the time to dedicate to it. If you're fortunate enough to have that person, or even more likely group of people who can kind of act as your production team, then cool, there are obvious benefits to that, right? Then there's no point in, spending money on hiring outside people. You're already paying people inside to do it. And they have the benefit of being inside your company. So they literally know it from the inside, and there's nothing lost in translation. In our experience, we found that that's pretty rare. And it's going to take a lot longer typically to fully produce a podcast than most people think it is when they first start. And especially if you just Google how to start a podcast, you'll find a lot of stuff that just says, oh, it's easy. Just record on your phone and do a little bit of editing right on your phone and you're all set to go. That's just not true. Or that's only true if you don't care about the quality at all. So at the end of the day, and hey, we're a little biased, obviously, because Connversa, that's what we do. But that's why we do it, because we think it actually provides a really valuable service if you want to be serious about podcasting.
I do want to ask a question to anybody thinking about in-house versus hiring somebody is, do you have 4 hours for every 30 minutes worth of recorded time to edit? Do you have plugins for your audio recording, like for your audio recording program? Do you have the knowledge on how to use those plugins to the fullest effect? Do you know how to take out sound noise in the background? Do you know how to dig through ums and uhs? Do you know how to write a transcript? Do you know how to do all of these things in a 24 to 48 hour period on average to turn your episode around? Because if you don't, that's when you call us. But if you do, then, okay, yeah, consider it. But if you don't like the stresses of it, still call us.
Yes. Well, I do want to speak to one point you made, Kelcey, in your debate, but what you said was just like producing in-house might be a little cheaper. But I did want to point out that, like, while that might be the case, sometimes that you do get what you pay for. So if you do invest a little bit more into the production quality, aka going with a production company, like just echoing the sentiments that we've already discussed, but like you're working with experts who do know how to dig through the ums and ahs, make the transcript. Again, those details that you might not know if you don't have editing experience.
Or write a description that's SEO relevant, so you find out, you pop up on Google. If you anybody who knows marketing knows Google is key.
All right. Okay, folks, we had a couple more debate questions, but we have actually run out of time. We actually have to go serve our clients and help them get their podcasts going. So I want to thank you all for listening. I think that this was a good debate and a fun debate, and I think we'll do this again. There are many more topics that we can debate. So, as always, thanks for listening. We hope that you'll follow us on social media. It's at Connversa Podcasting on what do we have? TikTok, right? We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're even on Facebook. Of course, you'll find us on LinkedIn. That's really our main channel, and that's just look for Connversa. That's Connversa, by the way, with 2 N's, CONN Versa. And we really hope that you'll subscribe to our podcast, right? The audio version. Check out our YouTube channel where you can see our beautiful shining faces,
or my dull gray
our
face.
Talking, our talking heads. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode with even with more awesome content. So thanks again, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
And before we close out, if you want to learn more about what we talked about, there is an article link in the description with more information about some of the debate topics. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.